Week 4 is basically over, which means that the first quarter of the NFL fantasy season is basically over as well. And I cannot stress this to you enough. Now is not the time to give up if you are 0-4. You are about to see teams panic and other teams give up and other teams get overconfident, which opens up buy low opportunities to change the trajectory of your fantasy team for the 2025 season. So we're getting into 5 buy low candidates before week 5 fantasy football, and I'm already doing everything I can to get us ready for week 5. So please go down there and drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now, get into our first guy. I want to reiterate it from last week because you should be buying Rasheed Rice right now if you are either 3-1 with a really stable team or 4-0 in perfect position right now. This, again, is not for everybody. Rasheed Rice is still out for 2 more games, meaning that if you are 0-4 and still trying to just crawl back out of a hole, or if you're 1-3, you should not be trading for Rasheed Rice because he will be taking up a bench spot for you when you have other pressing needs ahead of you. This only works if you are 4-0 or 3-1 because Rasheed Rice, the impact that he is going to bring to fantasy teams this year could very well be league winning. Patrick Mahomes, I don't think he's getting enough credit this year. He looks tremendous. This guy is slinging the rock everywhere. And up until last week against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday, he had really nothing to throw to. Now he's got Xavier Worthy back. Tyquan Thornton is evolving. Hollywood Brown occasionally is okay. So this guy, when he gets Rasheed Rice back, a true number 1, this is going to be a game changer for so many fantasy teams. So again, if you're 4-0, if you are 3-1, you should be trying to target Rasheed Rice. And one of the ideas I have right now is Michael Pittman and Devonta Williams for Rasheed Rice and Kyren Williams. Now, I think with this trade right here, you have to keep in mind that Michael Pittman is on an offense that I do now believe is legit. I am in on the idea that this year Sam Darnold is Daniel Jones. I do not think that he is going to be as good, obviously, as an asset would be with Patrick Mahomes being Michael Pittman. So that's why I would always prefer Rasheed Rice over a guy like Michael Pittman. I think his ceiling is just higher with Rasheed Rice in Kansas City. But then you get Devonta Williams, who's had a very good start to the year. Like, there's just no debating at this point. He looks much better than he has looked in years, basically probably since his rookie year with the Denver Broncos. But if you can get Kyren Williams off a couple bad games with Rasheed Rice on top of that, that's going to make your team potentially immortal if you are 4-0 or 3-1. So this is a move that I just think for 2 weeks straight now, you should be pursuing if you're in position to do so. Now here's the next big trade target, and I don't think you need to be 3-1 or 4-0 to make this trade because this guy is about to increase his production very quickly. Trey Benson. Trey Benson, I spent all of last week warning my audience, if you are familiar with my channel, about his performance that he was going to have in week 4. He was always in bad position. It was coming off a short week, and they were going to play one of the top 5 defenses in the NFL, if not potentially the number 1 defense. The Seattle Seahawks was never going to be a good matchup for Trey Benson. But Trey Benson did okay on the ground from an efficiency standpoint at over 4 yards per carry, and also Trey Benson is a very involved pass catcher in this offense. And this is something that you could actually really look forward to being the case for the majority of the season. Because one of the things that running quarterbacks don't typically do is dump the ball down to their running backs. Well, Trey Benson is in a unique position because Kyler Murray is not really a quarterback that likes to get hit. He has historically dumped the ball down to James Conner over the years because he doesn't want to get hit. This guy doesn't like to get hit, so he does dump the ball down quite a bit to his running backs. So that 5 catches that you saw from Seattle, that was a very sustainable number right there. And of course, again, he's going to be playing better defenses to play in fantasy football in future weeks than he will be against the Seattle Seahawks. So that number he produced in a full PPR format, that already wasn't a bad number, but it's going to get a lot better because Trey Benson, number 1, is a guy that could break off big runs at any point in the game. He actually broke up a couple nice runs during the Seattle game. But again, he played a really tough defense. And that's the thing. You will not play the Seattle Seahawks every single week if you're Trey Benson. I believe that this is a great trade target to go after because there was so much hype about Trey Benson coming into week 4. And most people were disappointed if you were not watching my channel, for example. So what I would personally try to pursue here is a trade like Garrett Wilson and Cam Scatterbo for Jackson Smith-Njigba and Trey Benson. Because JSN and Garrett Wilson, they're both target hogs on their offense, right? So there may not be a perceived big difference in somebody's mind between JSN and Garrett Wilson. Whereas with JSN, you're going to get more stable and solid quarterback play throughout the duration of the year where you cannot count on that for Garrett Wilson. So yes, I like Garrett Wilson, and he's obviously an elite wide receiver. I was on here last week after that game saying Jackson Smith-Njigba is a superstar, and he is. Cope with it. He's a legitimate superstar wide receiver one, and he's got a stable quarterback to get him the ball. And then you look at Trey Benson and Cam Scatterbo. Obviously, Scatterbo's coming off some really nice performances. It didn't take a great matchup for him to have a really good game. So I would also be willing to bet that the majority of people would take this kind of deal because of the lack of perceived difference between Garrett Wilson and JSN situation and Cam Scatterbo being the perceived better fantasy back after two strong performances and one weaker performance from Trey Benson. This is a move I think you could make. But I will also reiterate this. This is just one initial idea I have. If you want to send me your full team and have me break down your entire team with trade ideas and waiver wire acquisitions to make your overall team better, you can actually get a full team breakdown from me when you become a premium customer at fsroundup.com. You sign up for that premium subscription tier, and I will break down your entire team when your 12-day trial ends and you are an official customer with us at FS Roundup. All you have to do is email me at fsroundup@gmail.com, your entire team, and I will break down your entire team for you. So if you want that, go to FS Roundup, sign up for the premium subscription, and also get access to the automatic waiver wire tool at your disposal for a 12-day free trial, because that is helping people get out of purgatory and win their leagues in 2025.
This is Ted. Look at him. Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast. For the third year in a row. And losing his season again means one thing. Don't be Ted. Use Fantasy Football Roundup to automate your waiver pickups and rest easy this season. Huh. Look at him.
Now, our next trade target right here, I think this is a very advanced one where I think it's very similar to Rasheed Rice. If you are 4-0 or 3-1, trading for Devonta Smith right now, I think is an elite move. Now, listen, this one is a very telegraphed move, I would say, because nothing has happened yet in Philadelphia. But I remember back during the offseason when people were calling me nutso for saying that A.J. Brown was unhappy in Philadelphia. I mean, you could go back to after the Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl, mind you. Kicked the Kansas City Chiefs' butt. And A.J. Brown was still not happy. Not my words, his words. And people were like, yeah, how could this guy be so upset, right? Joking to me, acting like I was crazy for assuming that A.J. Brown wasn't happy based off his own freaking words. Now it's undeniable. A.J. Brown is not happy in Philadelphia. So he has one big game in week 3. I come out here and say, I think they're going to continue to get this guy more involved. And then in week 4, they prove me wrong. They come out and they basically do the exact same thing that they had done for the majority of the first month of the season with A.J. Brown again in week 4. So A.J. Brown is unhappy that this team is not getting him the ball. He posted on X after the game. I'm telling you right now, this is going to be a trade situation here in Philadelphia. So very soon, we're going to see A.J. Brown be traded before the trade deadline to a team that's probably not any good. And A.J. Brown may very well revive a lot of fantasy value on a bad team that just targets him into oblivion. But one thing is for sure as well, Devonta Smith will be this team's undisputed number 1 wide receiver. And with Jalen Hurts and that Eagles offense, I just want to trust in a wide receiver 1, because if there was not both of them, but just one of them, I think the fantasy value is pretty big. So again, if you're 0-4, if you're 1-3, this isn't the move for you because this deal has not happened yet. And Philadelphia is such a smart offense. What they'll do is they'll make sure A.J. Brown has a good game before they send him off somewhere else. But this is a move I absolutely think is going to come to fruition before the trade deadline. So for me, what I'm trying to do right now, if I'm a winning team, is take Tyreek Hill and Quinshon Judkins and trade him for Devonta Smith and Travis Etienne. Because Quinshon Judkins, again, is an offensive player that is on a really bad team, just like Tyreek Hill, but Judkins is killing it right now. I would rather take the running back on a better offense that is also crushing it as well and trade for the wide receiver that I believe comes the wide receiver one in Philadelphia. Whereas with Tyreek Hill, he may be traded as well, and I don't think that Tyreek is that good of a fantasy asset either. This is a move that I believe a lot of teams in good positions should be making right now. Now, the next trade target that I've got, this guy has not been bad necessarily, but it's been underwhelming, and the offense looks so bad that I think a lot of people might be okay with moving on from Ted McMillan. And I called Ted McMillan a pretty good buy low a couple of weeks ago, and I think we're back in that position again. Listen, this is not a Ted McMillan problem necessarily. If you just look at the Carolina Panthers this year, they have been atrocious offensively, mostly through the first month. Like, they had a 30-point game against the Atlanta Falcons in week 3, but then they came right back down to earth versus New England Patriots. And to be honest with you, I really don't know how much longer Bryce Young is going to remain the starter on this team. It may be very soon that we see Andy Dalton. But if you recall last year, Andy Dalton had some really good performances with fantasy wide receivers like Adam Thielen and Deontay Johnson last year. This team actually had some wide receivers that were viable in fantasy with Andy Dalton. So I don't think that Andy Dalton is the worst fantasy quarterback. It could be actually a better version of Joe Flacco. That being said, I'm not exactly sure when Bryce Young actually gets the boot out of this offense. But one thing I do know for sure is this is undisputed. Ted McMillan is this team's wide receiver one. If you go to FS Roundup and look at what I call bottom line metrics for wide receivers in an offense, those two bottom line metrics are snap count and routes run. And if you are at the top of your position undisputed on a weekly basis, you are the wide receiver one on this team. And Ted McMillan is not only the wide receiver one clearly in the bottom line metrics, but also from a target perspective as well. Xavier Legette has been injured the past 2 weeks, but make no mistake, it doesn't matter if the guy's injured or not. This guy sucks. So even when he comes back, it doesn't matter. Ted McMillan is their best wide receiver in this room by far. So to me, I kind of just look at this opportunity as like, maybe the team that drafted him is 1-3 or 0-4. And I can take advantage of this one a little bit. So what I would try to do personally is send Tyreek Hill and Woody Marks off a really good game for Ted McMillan and Jaylen Warren, who was a surprise inactive because of health reasons in week 4. I think this is a move that you could make because Woody Marks is on the rise in Houston's offense, but it is a bad offensive line. And I would also say that it's not for sure a guarantee that he overtakes Nick Chubb in this backfield, whereas with Jaylen Warren, he really is that number one running back. Kenneth Gainwell will continue to serve his role as that lead backup running back in Pittsburgh when Warren is back, but Warren is that running back one in this offense. And I think that Tyreek Hill for Ted McMillan is a trade that would go through potentially if you just did it on a one-on-one deal. But I think that packaging these two running backs together in this trade as well is making sure that you would actually get this move to go through. I think if you're 4-0, you're 3-1, and even if you're just 2-2 and you just need a solid wide receiver 2 or a flex option, Ted McMillan is a good target to go after right now. Now, I will say the last guy on this list as well, you need to be in good position to where you can be patient with Lad McConkey. Lad McConkey has entered full buy low territory right now. Through 4 weeks, he has done next to nothing in fantasy football. Now, I wouldn't even say that, right? Because Lad McConkey, up until week 4, actually had like solid floor. He was hitting all of his floor metrics, right? Like he was having like 11-point games in full PPR, 9-point games in full PPR. Like he has not been absolutely atrocious, but considering the draft price that people spent to go get Lad McConkey, it's obviously been a major disappointment. So I am not here to tell you that Lad McConkey has some sort of silver lining in this offense when he's just done not very much. And if you look at week 4 alone, that enough was bad enough to I think where people would be really going over the edge and saying, I can't do this anymore with Lad McConkey. That's why I believe we are where we are, being a buy low candidate for Lad McConkey. Because again, if you look at fsroundup.com, take a look at the bottom line metrics, he is consistently at the top over Quentin Johnston and Keenan Allen with bottom line metrics. Now, obviously, those bottom line metrics don't necessarily equivocate to great fantasy output. That's been proven by Lad McConkey alone, being outperformed by Quentin Johnston and Keenan Allen this year. I'm not here to discuss that. What I'm here to discuss is Lad McConkey being involved on a weekly basis to the point where I know personally that his breakout is imminent. It will absolutely happen, and that window will close once he has a 20-plus point game. Because it will happen, and when people see that, if he's still on the original team that drafted him, you're probably not going to get him for an easy price. Right now, it feels like the perfect opportunity to go send a move like this. Quinshon Judkins, Justin Jefferson for Lad McConkey, and Jonathan Taylor. So obviously you're going to give up Justin Jefferson, who I believe is a really elite player in this league, but I'd make no secret about it. I called this during the offseason. I think this quarterback situation is a mess in Minnesota. Just because Carson Wentz revived his value a little bit in week 4 doesn't mean that I think Justin Jefferson is all of a sudden fine. But that kind of proves my point about Lad McConkey as well, because Justin Jefferson now had Jordan Addison come back and be really relevant in week 4. Now people, after this performance with Justin Jefferson, probably less likely to deal him because they feel like they're going to get the return on their investment again. Lad McConkey is this close to having a 20-point game and people not being willing to trade him. But I trust Lad's quarterback position way more than I trust Justin Jefferson, so I would rather have Lad if I can get an elite running back for a running back on the rise right now that's on a really bad team. This move may or may not happen, but I think it's absolutely worth a shot before Week 5 fantasy football. So let me know who you are trying to target before Week 5 fantasy football, and make sure to stay tuned for the rest of season wide receiver rankings today.